So HiveAlive is very easy to use. Simply add just 2.5 mils of HiveAlive per litre syrup. And in US measurements, that's 2 teaspoons of HiveAlive per gallon of syrup. So HiveAlive is quite concentrated compared to some other feed supplements out there. It's a small bottle with a big effect. Now, the minimum that we recommend feeding is 4 litres of activated syrup per hive, or 1 gallon of activated syrup per hive. Now, ideally, all syrup fed has HiveAlive added, which is a question that we get asked a lot. The more you feed, the better the results. For best results, feed in autumn and spring. But if you are only feeding once per year, the autumn or the fall is the best time to feed. So for weaker hives that mightn't be feeding, we recommend spraying or drenching. This can be done using a light sugar syrup and using a higher dose of HiveAlive. So the dose to use there is 1 in 100. Instructions are all on the label, so don't worry about remembering those numbers. So it's best to spray once a week for 3 weeks to cover the full brood cycle. Now just spray enough to lightly wet the bees and frames. You don't want to drown them. So spraying and drenching also gives a varroa drop, but it's not effective enough to be called a treatment. But it definitely helps, especially if done when there's very little brood in the frame, like in early spring. And a lot of people ask us, what's the best way to administer HiveAlive? Adding HiveAlive to syrup is by far the best way to administer HiveAlive. Drenching or spraying is good when the bees are not eating or they're weak, or encouraging the bees to clean up the hive. But to get all the proven benefits of HiveAlive, like more bees, more honey, lower nosema levels, it really is best to add HiveAlive to the syrup to let them eat it. Okay, we'll move on then to some other ways to use HiveAlive. So HiveAlive can also be added to homemade protein patties, candy or fondant or sugar boards, depending on what way you call it. If you're adding it to protein patties, we recommend a concentration of 1 teaspoon per pound of patty. If you're adding it to sugar boards, just one thing to note is that the temperature of the sugar must be below 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 55 degrees Celsius before adding HiveAlive, and this is so that the bioactives in HiveAlive do not get damaged. Some people spray a light sugar solution with HiveAlive added onto bees and frames instead of using smoke to help calm the bees when they're doing hive inspections. Other beekeepers have told us it's great for encouraging bees to clean up old frames or to draw out new wax. So they just spray or brush on a light sugar solution with HiveAlive added. So then other benefits of using HiveAlive, one of the biggest reasons would be to increase the attractiveness of the syrup to bees. Perhaps if the bees aren't taking down the syrup without anything added, add HiveAlive in there, it will make the syrup more attractive. Another huge reason for using it is it prevents syrup from fermenting. So that means no more black mold in feeders. So this increases the feeding window and prevents bees from eating syrup that has gone moldy, which could cause gut issues for them. It also allows beekeepers to store unused syrup. So if you have made up more syrup than you're going to use, you can keep it until the following feeding season when HiveAlive is added and it won't go moldy. You can store syrup for at least 6 months. So it's also useful in the introduction of new queens. The smell of HiveAlive can help mask queen pheromones. So it's great if you're adding in new queens and worried that they'll get attacked.